product, 5082, is actually a very new product. It launched just this year in 2020, and in the market development trials that we had it in 2019, it showed up very strongly, competing well with 6088 in yield, as well as 7027, 6435, which is always very impressive when you get 109-day maturity to yield with the big dogs. So we're very excited about this one, not just from the yield, but from its overall agronomic capabilities. This is a product that we feel good about having on any and every acre out there. It's shown good tolerance in stress acres. It has great disease scores. We do consider it a disease shield product, even though its southern rust score is just on the margin, but obviously as a 109-day product, it's going to mature and make its yield before southern rust presents much of a trouble. So definitely have a look at this one. It should give a little bit of relief to 6088. We certainly don't want to kick that one to the curb, but this is a great companion product with that. I'd plant this one after the 6088. It doesn't come out of the ground nearly as fast as 6088, but that's not to say it's not a great emerging product. It's also great on wet feet. So if you've got some acres that moisture is a little bit of a concern, where wet feet could be a problem, this is a great choice for that one. Brand new product this year, 6080, not to be confused with 6088, but to be companioned with 6088. We're looking in this one from pre-commercial yield ratings and scores for this to be right in the same ballpark, if not maybe a little bit better than 6088 and 5982. It certainly will give us a bit of an edge agronomically as far as harvest intactness compared to 6088 at the end of the year. Should stand and shade a little bit better right out of the ground. Just maybe a touch behind 6088 as far as early emergence. 6088 is definitely going to be one of our better ones for that, but we're really looking for some good things out of this one, along with that yield, along with the early shading and overall agronomic intactness. Going to be a great one for us. $6088. This product has been a mainstay in our lineup for the past 4 years. It launched the same year as 7027 and 6435 and 6675. While it's not a disease shield like those other 3 products, it does stand well, emerges excellent out of the ground, and yield, it's right there with the big dogs. So this became very popular mainly because of its early emergence ability and its ability to go across about any and every acre. So this one, about the only knock I can say about it is it gets maybe a touch on the ugly side come harvest time, but it's 110. You're going to be harvesting it early, so get to the field, hit it early. This is one that we do want to see a fungicide on. It's not as strong, as I mentioned before, as our disease shield products against southern rust, Goss's wilt, that kind of stuff, but its yield is going to more than make up for it.
Folks, it's the middle of August that I mentioned, and in a normal year, this would be a prime time for field days, going to your local dealership, learning some of the newer genetics as well as some of the older tried and true ones. We're no different than that, with the exception of maybe our approach to plot work and developing a message in what we believe would be good hybrid and genetic choices for you. Many of you have seen our hybrid grid. And our hybrid grid is just basically an accumulation of all the plot sets that we have, not only within the Wilbur-Ellis dealership at Plattsmouth, but also across southeast Nebraska. This same plot network is replicated somewhere in the neighborhood of 30 to 36 times annually. And the idea behind this is not so much a statistical power, but also a replicated power across management strategies. Many growers plant at different times, and they have different fertility levels, and they have different soil types, and they have all these other things that go into the recipe of raising corn that are different from operation to operation. Our idea is to spread these genetics across all those operations to see which hybrid or which genetic package performs the best in all those environments. So we developed the grid. And the grid is basically an accumulation or an average of all those environments. And it's a bit of an eye chart, but we do color code this thing, and that anything that is coded yellow is hybrid that places in the top third of the plot every time it shows up. Anything that's colored in purple is in the top half of the plot. So it's a little bit easier to read. You see hybrids that have a lot of yellow and purple coding down the column. It shows you the consistency of that hybrid in all management strategies as far as how it performs and where it performs. Now, I'm no different than most agronomists this time of year. Usually we talk about genetics, how it emerged, stalks quality, and overall how it yields. And we're doing that while mainly the steaks are frying for the evening's activities. I'm a little bit different in that I'm going to throw a little data at you. I'm a very number-oriented person from what we know historically and what we predict to see in some of these new releases. So with that, we'll start kind of the new genetic review in corn. All right, folks, so as I mentioned, the Dekalb lineup for the 2020 and 2021 season has got 4 new hybrids that will be released into broad spectrum commercialization for the 2021 planting season. We're going to start in this 110-day maturity, and from the Dekalb standpoint, how you know its maturity is you add 50 to the first 2 numbers. So for instance, 5982, 50 plus 59 is 109, and that's a 109-day hybrid. A little bit a new hybrid last year. Then we have 6080, which is brand new this year. And then all the way to the right is 6088, which has been on the market here for a few years. So we always are challenged to figure out where the new hybrids fit, what advantage they might have over some of the older hybrids that you may like. And always remember, new hybrids are never really brought out into commercialization unless it has something better over and above than the existing lineup. So 5982 we'll kind of start with a little bit. When I talked about the grid, we talk about win percentages. And we talk about that within the same maturity group. So mind you that this data that I speak of is plus or minus 4 RM, which means it's going down to 107-day maturities and also up to 113-day maturities. So 5982, last year, 65% of the time against all competitive and Dekalb hybrids, which was 176 comparisons, it had an 8.4 bushel advantage, and it was 6.5 bushels above the average. Now, what's the average? It's a floating number. Every year it's going to be different based upon weather conditions, whatnot. Last year, I think our plot average across all 36 locations last year was somewhere in the neighborhood of about 240 bushel, an exceptional year. This year, given southeast Nebraska conditions, we probably got that potential as well to have that kind of average. So when we consider that it is 6.5 bushels above the average, that's fairly sizable. 41% of that, I remember I mentioned about top 3 and top half. 41% of it, 41% of the time, it's in the top 3. 50% it's in the top half. So the beauty about 5982 is it's a universal hybrid. It's a workhorse that can kind of go everywhere. We focus it more on some of the lower fertility, tougher soil environments, and that's where it's really meant to thrive. Now, in comparison, if you look at one of the older hybrids in 6088 all the way to the right, 6088 has been around for about 5 years. 57% of the time against competitive Dekalb and competitive hybrids, I should say. It's got a 2.4 bushel advantage. Now, again, 5982 came out last year, 109 versus 110. 6088's been a long staple. It's been an awful good hybrid in this neighborhood. If we were to throw a stone at it, its harvestability and disease package isn't the best. It's one that we would suggest you use a fungicide with. I'm always going to suggest you use a fungicide, but 6088 genetically certainly would benefit from the use of fungicide. Good ear flex with it, and you can plant it early. That's one of the things that also is a added benefit from it. Works well in high pH, and like everything in southeast Nebraska, it kind of works better in rotated soils. All right, so 5982 is a little bit more of a dryland tough soil piece. 6088 is a little bit better of a high fertility, early planted piece. Maybe if you've got pH issues, that would be your fit. Now we consider the new one in 6080. Brand new release. Now, I say this not to build overexcitement with it, because many times new hybrids are supply limited. So we'll talk about this as we go through this morning, but 6080, let's just say everything that we've led to believe out of the breeding notes is true. And from what that we know of, it's 3 bushels better than 5982. Pretty sizable when you consider what 5982 did last year over and above what we found in 6088, right? So 6080 is another plant early hybrid. Something that we know that it's got pretty good disease package, pretty excellent with Gauss's wilt tolerance, not bad with green snap tolerance. I also failed to mention there's been a fair amount of wind around here lately. 5982 has got very excellent green snap. Now, what's excellent? Well, comparatively to everything else that has had green snap issues, 5982 did better. Is there a certain instance where you're going to have a strong enough velocity wind that's going to snap all the corn? Sure, that is true. We do know that 5982 is a little bit better in this maturity for green snap, and 6080 would rival that. So we talked about disease package, we talked about stalk strength, and it's also got very good ear flex. So we're encouraged to think about not only a replacement, and I'm careful when I say that, in 6080 replacing 6088. 6088 will be around for a number of years yet, but we truly feel that 6080 will probably fit that 6088 market a little bit better than the 5982. So you'll have kind of a tough soil, dry land choice in 5982. And you can look at some of the older genetics in 6088 for that high fertile bottom ground acre that you want to plant early, maybe has some pH issues, and also consider a little bit of 6080 in some of the newer genetics. We also want to visit with you surrounding some competitive hybrids. Every brand has got hybrids that will work for you. The question is that can they prove their statements as far as stock quality and emergence and those types of things. And the Mynard plot has always been designed with that in mind, to let you come in and make your own assessments. When we look at 6080 and 6088 or 5982 for that matter, we're always going to focus on some of the Pioneer lineup in this same maturity range. So Pioneer competitors in this 109, 110 day maturity would be materials like 1082 Aquamax, 1089 Aquamax, 1182, or 1197, which matched up quite well with 6088 from a few years ago. Now, we talk about heat units and we talk about dry down, and remember that what you find in seed resource guides from each brand will be different. The rating scale might be the same, but as an example, Dekalb's dry down might be a day or two quicker than Pioneer's dry down in 110. So you always kind of got to remember that when you're making your genetic decisions. And that's not a slam or a skew of the data. That's just what we've amassed within our grid system here the past few years. So one of the things we wanted to follow up with on is some of the ongoing stuff that we've had going on at the Mynard plot. One of these dealt with fertility. So you may remember in the spring of the year we had some rows of corn on the west side of the plot that had a fair amount of mare's tail growing in it. Turns out it didn't have a lot of fertilizer in it either. And we figured that out after the fact. So these are ears that basically have no fertilizer or no nitrogen on them. Rows right next to them had 150 pounds of nitrogen on them. So we've talked about the importance of pollination. We've talked about compaction, root development, water and nutrient uptake. This, in case, is just what happens when you're lacking fertilizer. You have what we call zipper ears, where the subs didn't emerge on the bottom of that cob, and consequently they didn't get pollinated. So that's just kind of a case in point example. Another thing that we wanted to show you. This is these 4 boards are from our population study. So right here we've got 24,000, we've got 28,000, we got 32,000, and we got 36,000 in population. If you notice all these 4 boards, the ear development is quite similar. They're about 18 around, and they're ranging anywhere from 36 to 40 rows long. The only true difference here is the population. So even though we've got a nice ear at 24,000, with this one in 7027, which we know has got a fair amount of ear flex, look how much yield you can achieve at 36,000 in population. These all examples are still at the Mynard plot. They'll be there till we harvest them. You're more than willing or more than happy to have you go and look at that, walk through them, tear them down, tear them apart, look at them, see, make your own assessments. But this is what we're finding so far in ear development.